definitely have a great opportunity for you guys to make some money on that. And then we have a single story in Southern Highlands at $489 with Casita, and it's a great. It's only single story in that price range in Southern Highlands.
Okay, got it.
That's Roya. Roya.
I got one.
How much was the duplex? $375?
$375.
$375. Just had a price reduction. Anyone else have a listing they want to talk about?
I got one.
You got one.
Me. I have two, but so this one is 4678 Brentley Place, 435. It's in coming soon status until November 1st. Still needs to be cleaned and all that stuff. So they're just FYI, it's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2,000 square feet, single story.
Where?
East Las Vegas.
Do you have another one? You said you had two.
Oh yeah, I have one more, but I have to look it up.
That's why she didn't say.
No, it was just because I forgot. The other one is 4340 Cinema that went live yesterday. That's in North Las Vegas. And that one is 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 425, 1795 square feet. Also a single story.
Very cool.
That's on a 6,900 square foot lot.
Wow. Very nice. And I have the only listing available in Club Aliante. If you've ever been to Club Aliante, it's a lot of fun. They even have events in their clubhouse. Just dropped it to $550, 2196 square feet, and if you sell it, you get a bonus. All the dad jokes you want. Okay, so we're gonna get started with the mortgage moment. Where's Shelly? Here she is. Did you have another one?
I have one.
Oh, here.
So this one just went live yesterday. It's 1359 Winter Solstice. It's in Henderson. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single story for $379.
Ooh, good price.
Wait, it was a single story, 3-bedroom.
3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Like that duplex.
Yes.
Duplex, you could put your daughter and your husband in one with a big old garage. That would solve the 14-car garage, 3-bedroom. Although I have to find a place for myself, huh? Happy Tuesday, guys! I haven't been here in like a month. How are you guys doing? Did you guys miss me? I missed you. Okay, awesome. So I learned how to do some caricatures as I was out this week. You guys like them? So which buyer is yours? Casey? Caricatures. Don't guess which one's you, B. Don't guess which one. Oh, you're not on there. None of them. All right, so is your buyer, we're going to wait until the market drops? Do you guys have buyers like that?
Not anymore.
Nobody? Nobody? What about, I'm tired of paying rent, we're ready to buy now? Who's that? That looks like a millennial guy. Kind of looks like my husband, but a little bit skinnier. What about rates will stay low forever? How many of you guys have buyers like that? Everybody have buyers? Hello? Okay, awesome. Nice slide, thank you. So I wanted to share some stats. We're going to talk a little bit about rates today. This is projections based off the Keeping Current Matters. You guys see Vanita in purple? Oh, you're good. You guys are good.
Whose idea was it for
Man, call the stage. All right, so here's where we are. How many of you guys think that we are at about 11.74 for appreciation this year, 2021? Does that seem right? What they're projecting for 2022 is 5.82. So remember that number, 5.82 for next year is what our appreciation is going to look like. And then 2023, 2024. So they call this a depreciation only because today we're higher and we're going to go lower, but we're still appreciating, right, from where we were a few years ago. Okay, next slide, Beta. Here's where rates are projected to be. So today we're at 3.125. We're heading into the fourth quarter. Actually, we're at 3%. We're going to be heading into the fourth quarter. Wait, we're in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Holy crap, the year's about to end, guys. Just in case you didn't know, that we're in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter rates are at 3.18. They're averaging this off of Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, MBA, and NAR. And what they're going to look at third quarter, so in about a year or 6 months, you're going to be looking at 3.55%. So remember, 5.82% projection for appreciation in 2022. Interest rates are going to be about 3.55%. Okay, go ahead. Here's our buyer today who's ready to buy. Here's what that payment looks like based on a $350,000 loan amount. That payment at 3%, which is where we are today, is $1,476. Okay, next slide. Here's our buyers who think that they're going to wait until the market drops. So I just put in, because this is how far my depreciation goes, $310,000, which is about what, 10% of a drop. And you'll see, if you saw rates were going to go to 3.5% by Q3 of 2022, that payment's going to be $1,392, and you're like, Shelly, that looks better to me. Does that look good to you guys, right? You go from $1,476 to $1,392. But they stayed in this home they stayed in their home renting, assuming a rental amount of $1,500. They stayed in that home for 6 months, and they paid $9,000 in rent to their landlord. They didn't build any equity or anything like that. They paid $84 in lower payment, but the reality of that is that $9,000, if you took that $84, would have been 107 months. How many of your first-time home buyers plan to live in their home for, 107 months? How many months is that? 10 years? Or years? 10 years. They'll be moving out of that, right? In addition to that, if they decided to stay there for 30 years, they're going to be losing in total interest about $10,000, $9,900. So when you compare this to the couple who's ready to buy today, who's going to be better? Go ahead and hit the next slide, please. And here's this one. Rates are going to stay low for a while. So let's just take that 5.82% appreciation that we saw, right, for next year. So 5.82 is going to bring you right around $370,000. If rates stayed that low, the interest or the payment on that is going to be $1,560. Weird how it's $84 more, but it's $84 more per month. If they still waited, right, they're still going to pay that $9,000 for that 6 months, just assuming they took 6 months to find a home. And then overall interest is going to be negative $10,355 if they took it for a 30-year term. Next slide, please. So, which buyer is right?
Buy now.
Buy now, right? Here's some other things to consider. Inflation control. How many of you guys have heard inflation, inflation, inflation?
I've seen it on Facebook.
Yeah, once or twice, right? So rent control as well. You're going to be able to control what you're paying. Like landlords today are excited to increase their rents today because they can, right? Inflation control, as you're hearing that everything is going up, you get fixed on your principal and interest payment on that. So who is your buyer today? It's going to be the buyer today. So I did this because I actually have clients who tell me this all the time. I'm going to wait until the market actually drops. We're going to come into a huge correction. Rates are still going to stay this low because the Fed has to keep rates low. And the truth of the matter is you saw projections off of what NAR was saying and what off of Keeping Current Matters. It actually is saying that you're going to see a decrease in appreciation and you're going to see an increase in interest rates. So I wanted to share this with you. If you guys want this slide or any information about the purchasing buying power, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Do you guys have any questions at all for me? Do you guys like my caricatures?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'll give it back to Chris. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Shelley. Give Shelley a round of applause. Okay, a couple of quick announcements. Brandon's installation as president of LVR is coming up. Is it November 13th or 6th? 6th. I'll be there. November 6th, so if you definitely are interested in doing that, it's going to be a great event at the Four Seasons. And we have
a great event.
a trunk or treat coming up.
Yes, we do.
The 27th, it's going to be here at the Southwest office, and we'd love to see you come and decorate your trunk for trunk or treat. Okay.
There's a CE class just before the event.
There is a CE class just before that for the ethics.
I don't know why you don't just give me the
Triennial.
microphone. I mean, I'm like.
It's right there.
We're going to do that in a minute. So, and just a reminder that you have to have your triennial done by the end of the year. So make sure you get that done.
We also have an event. See, I told you, you should just give it to it. Just
Come
sit
on,
down,
sit
let me
down,
have
big boy.
it. So we've got, obviously, the CE class, which is the what would you do, questions of ethical integrity. That's your ethics triennial that you will need done by the end of the year. Some of you are on a list, so get off that list, come to that class. Then the 27th, the trunk or treat. We want agents to open up their trunks, have candy, and then invite your clients to come. So a little bit more than what Chris was saying. And then on the 29th and 30th, we're doing an event called Unlocked for Children. It is from ages 12. It's ages 11 to 18. And ideally, what it does is it helps children like work on stuff, become leaders, work on things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis in school. The 29th, you guys, is a holiday. If you didn't know, that's Nevada Day. And if you don't intend on going out of town, this is a great event. It's $100 per child for here at Signature. Signature Strong is going to be covering the rest of the cost. And it's actually a great, great event. I'm really looking forward to it. It's an all-day thing on Friday as well as on Saturday. So get your kids registered for that. I'll go ahead and put the link in the YouTube as well as on our Facebook and wherever else I can find a place to do it. That's it. You can have that.
Okay, cool. So today's topic, we're going to do something a little bit different. Yeah, we're a little bit different. Vonna is going to speak. And so we've had some topics that have come up, and basically they're scenario-based. And so they're broker questions that we get, and you'll notice that when you go to a certain broker, sometimes you'll get a little bit different answer, and it's based on their experience, right? It's based on what they've had happen. And so I've got a ton of these scenarios, a ton of these scenarios. And we've had some other questions that are just, what if? What if I wanted to do this? What would you suggest as a broker for me to do it? And so we're going to start off with a what if. What if I don't want to do residential real estate anymore and I want to move into another version of real estate, such as commercial, or I'm crazy enough to move into property management, or I want to get into business opportunities? What advice do you have for someone who's looking to go into a secondary field? Who wants to go first?
I will, I have the microphone. Okay, first of all, if you want to go into commercial, just be aware, we're not going to allow you to just go into commercial because there's too much liability and our E&O insurance may not cover you. But I do have, that being said, I have a couple of agents that do want to go into commercial. And so every day it seems like I get an email advertising a commercial class or a commercial CE class or event the Commercial Association of Las Vegas is putting on. And I forward these to my 3 agents I have who are interested in getting into commercial. They haven't done it yet. And until they can build up enough CE, enough education to be able to have a conversation and send a resume to Brandon, they're not allowed to do it because you can't just jump into another lane.
I forwarded them to you. don't worry.
I was like to Brandon, I usually get them. But, so it will come to me on commercial. The only one thing I want to add to that is it doesn't matter if you're planning on going into commercial, property management, or business opportunities. There's too much liability behind it. You can't just go into any one of those 3. You have to have a conversation with the broker before that happens. There's a separate agreement that's going to be attached to your independent contractor's agreement. So I guess there was more than just one thing that I wanted to add to that, surprise. But all of those things, you have to have a conversation with your, with one of the brokers. So for you, because you asked it, it's business broker, right, which is your business opportunities, property management, as well as commercial. And property management is, I think, one of those things that I'm not sure how many more property managers we're taking on. I think it's, you had a,
There's no opportunity for.
There's no property management
or
opportunities.
business opportunity with
Yeah.
this company. If you want to get into property management, I'll have a conversation with you, but you better be serious about building a portfolio, not taking on onesie, twosie property managers.
See, I knew he'd say it from the side over there.
Well,
Tell him why. Tell him why that's important.
So for those of you at home that can't hear Brandon, because he doesn't have a mic, there's no opportunities for business, broker, or property management here at Signature unless you intend to really build a portfolio. No onesies or twosies. We just won't allow it.
Business broker.
But no business broker. We have 2 in the company, and that's it.
And it's because of the liability factor.
And because of the liability,
Why?
yeah, business broker is just crazy. It's too much work.
Property
It's a lot of work.
management
Just
if you want to do 1 or 2, you're just creating brain damage for yourself. I mean, there's absolutely no money in
Great
it
word.
until you build a portfolio of sorts. And for us to have to do the management of all that money, because we have to manage it on our side, my staff has to. And to pay you guys 20 or 30 bucks a month to do all that, it's a headache.
So let's add the whys behind this, because this is important. I know some of you here just know you can't do it. Business brokers, when you understand the fact that you're selling large corporations, and it's not just the fact that someone wants to sell something to make a commission. It's the fact that if you screw it up, what do you think they're going to do?
those people have a shit ton of money.
They're going to sue you. And a $2 million E&O insurance policy will not cover the sale of a $5 million business, plus the income loss that business loses because you didn't do the deal correctly. And I've seen 30-year veterans in business broker opportunities that have gotten sued, and they've lost everything they created over a 30-year career. And so the point of it is the liability factor would cause an E&O policy to do that job to be $10,000, $12,000 a month for you to possibly earn 1 commission in a lifetime. And so that's why a lot of brokers won't even touch it. The second is property management, right? I've been a property manager, Vaughn is a property manager, Brandon's done it. The whole point is it worth $100 a month for you to piss off a client that would have bought 3 houses from you? And the answer is no. I would rather go to Brandon or Vaughn and refer my client and get a great referral check and a really happy client than to try to make $35. And I'm not kidding when I say $35 because you think it's $100. It's not. Just like they want you to negotiate on your commission, they think that you getting $100 a month is too much to deal with all the phone calls, issues, and problems. And so they ask for you to negotiate on it. And you're not just going to do it by yourself because someone has to operate your trust account, and that's the brokerage. And so you're going to pay a split on it. And so at the end of the day, you're really getting $35 every month. Anyone here can live off of $35 a month? It wouldn't even cover my Starbucks, right? And so the whole point is, don't put yourself in a position to lose your entire business over something that is so minuscule it doesn't make any business sense. But let's talk about commercial. If I want to get into commercial real estate, I've got to have my writer, but what else do I have to have?
Experience.
Experience. How do I get, I've never sold commercial, how do I get experience?
Mentor. You mentor with a broker who already does commercial so that they can teach you the ropes, so that you can learn side by side about everything. Now here's the thing with commercial is that there's so many different commercial transactions that you can do one really well, for instance, like leasing of a commercial building, and then completely screw up another one. So they're very different. Believe it or not, even commercial vacant land is not easy. If you have a client that's looking to get permits or wants to, let's say, build a gas station, they've got so many things that they have to do, special use permits that they have to get, they have to do soils reports, you've got to have all of that available to you to be able to accomplish that. So every type of commercial, that's why when you guys ask, like on Facebook, in the Agents of Signature, you always ask, oh, I need a commercial broker. I'm like, well, what type of commercial are you looking for? Because I will tell you, not one person can do it all. And if they say they can, go find somebody who specializes in it. Because the problem that you're gonna have is that if the one person says, I can do all of these different types of commercial, finding a restaurant is different than finding vacant land, than finding a hotel, right? All of those are very unique. Find somebody who is very specific in that commercial type of property. That's all.
All you have to do is give her a mic and she just goes with it.
Sorry.
You hit it all on the head.
It's been so long.
I know, you're going to withdrawals. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I'll just add that if you're asking about doing a different type of real estate, it probably means you're not being successful in your residential career, and you're probably not making the money and or having the fun that you need to be having, and you probably need a coach. So I would encourage you, if that's what you're thinking about, go find somebody that you can talk to, probably a broker, that can talk to you about getting coached in your real estate business so that you can be more successful and have more fun doing that part of it. Because all of the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence until you get there and you look back and go, oh, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, right? So I think a lot of people want to move around or change things because they're not being as successful as they'd like to be, and that's a coaching issue. Like, we can all only go as far as we can go without a coach. So maybe look into coaching.
So I want to take this a step further. In residential, we get a residential real estate license, we have access to the MLS, we have our showing key, and a lot of people kind of stay in the middle, right? They do a little bit of everything. And the whole point is that when I got into the business, a lot of people had specialties or niches in real estate. And one of the things I always wanted to be was a golf course community professional, right? Because I like to play golf, and I like communities, and I like clubhouses, and so I thought, wow, this is my bucket list here.
And then they started disappearing.
Yeah, then I sold them and they just went away. No, but the whole point was that I had to find a professional that did that for a living, that would show me the ropes on how to get into it. And I think that's the best advice I can give any of you. If you want to break into any part of our business, the thing I did after that was I wanted to make more money but have an easier transaction, and I kept seeing these agents sell residential land. Not commercial land, but residential land for someone to build a house on. And up until about 4 years ago, the residential land agreement still said the walkthrough required the property to be broom clean. Think about that. That meant how many people were actually reading that contract or doing it. But the cool thing about residential land is if you are good in it, you do get a little bit higher commission, and the transactions seem to flow very easy, in my opinion. They have different conditions and criteria, but I had to go find somebody who did that and have them show me how to do it. That meant that I had to go work for them for free to learn what they knew so I could come and make a profit from it. Isn't that just like any other business that you would go into? You would go and get knowledge and understanding, and you would pay for it, and then you would go out and use that knowledge and understanding. So that's why I'm saying that if you have a desire to jump into those, think about doing that. Find someone who's doing it, and try to copy everything they're doing. Okay, so we're going to give a lighter question here. What is the best business tool you have in your real estate business?
The best?
Okay, the one that you can think of at the moment.
I think for me, client appreciation type of events quarterly.
Really?
Some big engagement with our clients within the team makes a big difference. It just re-engages them. It reminds them that we're still here. It allows us to appreciate them and ask for referrals. Again, it's really an opportunity to ask for referrals. And hey, it might be time for you to sell, or it might be time for you to buy, or whatnot. But I would say, hands down, something client appreciation type of situation every quarter.
Here. What was yours?
Your phone.
Wow. I can see that with you.
We didn't mean legitimately like tool.
Oh, just kidding.
Not that you,
How
okay.
about tool?
So mine-
Calling on the phone.
Mine is leverage support. And so what I mean by that is a TC that handles file management, operations manager that handles my admin support, and a team manager that handles my leverage. And so I learned a long time ago that there is a way in our business to progress to multiple levels, but one person can't do everything, right? One person can't be in every place that they'd like to be. And at some point in your business, to go to those higher levels, you have to release things to other qualified people to support you. And so I found out a long time ago, when I was banging my head against the wall trying to do all these deals myself, when I got good help and support, it was the best business tool I ever invested in. And so for me, that's what mine was. Janet, Tom?
So I think for me, because I'm really not a competing broker, I do an occasional deal here and there. It has to be a really good past client or a family member. But my business is
Looking to
really
expand her family.
taking in agents, and I think it's networking, and I think it applies for you too. I go to everything, and if I'm not there, there's a reason. It's because I'm somewhere else. And just getting out and talking to people makes a big difference. In fact, I will tell you, it was freaky. So we're having post-licensing going on right now at the office on Russell, off Russell, and I'm coming in the back door, walking towards the elevator, and there's this lady right behind me. I have on my mask because we're required to wear our mask when we're out in the public part of the building. And she said, "Oh, hi, you must be Janet Carpenter." And I went, "I've never seen this woman in my life." I said, "Yes, how do you know that?" And she said, "Oh, I've watched your videos on Signature YouTube channel." And I said, "You recognize me with a mask on?" And she's like, "Yeah." So being out there, being seen makes a big difference. And I also always brag. I've bragged on this person for, God, 4 or 5 years. Ellie Morris, who I call Mr. Networking. He never missed a Chamber of Commerce event. He went to the opening of the smallest beauty shop and the biggest bars, and that's where he got his clients, networking. Get out there and talk to people.
I'm a little concerned that you're, off somewhere else sometimes, and it's, what'd you just call it? Freaky.
No, it was freaky that this lady knew me.
Wow.
I'd never seen her before, and she called me by name, and I had a mask on. That was
Interesting.
freaky.
So I think the best tool that I have is the one that works best for me personally. And that is, I'm a numbers person. I track a lot of numbers. I like to see the numbers. I like to kind of know where my business is going based on numbers. So I would tell you that your best tool is the one that you use the best. Ellie uses networking the best. Ellie, I appreciate that you do that. I'm never going to do that. That's not something I'm going to force myself to go do because it's not I'm not comfortable doing that, okay? So for me, the best tool is the one that I can leverage at the highest level, and that's, for me, happens to be numbers. Probably isn't numbers for most of you because most of us don't equate numbers and aren't that great with numbers. So I think your best tool is the one that you can leverage at the highest level. It's the one that you can put into place and get the most success from, if that makes sense.
Okay, short question. MLS photos, do I use an iPhone or a camera guy?
Camera.
Camera.
Depends on which iPhone.
iPhone 13 just covered it all, right?
There are
And I say this because it's usually the first question that comes out of a brand new agent taking their first listing. They want to save a lot of money, and so they go out to the listing and they use their iPhone, which iPhones are way better than the camera that I used to use when I first started, when you'd have to go and actually get the photos developed and then have them uploaded to the MLS on a piece of paper. You remember that? And that was not old. That was 2000, right?
So here's what I'll tell you. There's a battle in the industry about commission levels. How much can you get paid, right? One of the values that you bring is that you hire a professional photographer. That's one of the things that you point out at your listing appointment, is I hire a professional photographer. Look, it isn't the camera that you use. iPhone 13, honestly, I've got people, my daughter is a professional photographer, and she's like, wow, those are really good. Like, I could use that in my weddings, I could use that in different places. But the reality is it isn't necessarily your camera, it's your eye. It's your ability to take that picture that will portray to the other side when they see it that they should come see this home. Pictures are not about what the home looks like, it's about getting people interested in the home so they want to come and look at it and they want to come and see it. So for me, I don't know it's necessarily about a camera, but it's about somebody who can look at this and go, this shot is going to get someone to want to come look at the home opposed to this shot.
The other thing I'll add to that is, have you ever been on a listing, and let's talk about high dollar listings, something above $750 and it only has 3 photos? Doesn't that infuriate you, right? And how long do you click through those 3 photos before you realize it's only 3 photos, right?
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times. But the point is, if I was going to do a good service to my consumer that listed with me, don't I owe it to them to keep the buyer interested in the property as long as possible? And so I should have as many photos, up to 50, in the MLS, and I can actually add more than 50 if I have portal access to some of the other bigger portals. If I can keep a buyer clicking through those photos, do you think buyers stop 25 photos in, or do you think they keep going until it's over? Right? And so the whole point is, to Todd's point, my commission is justifying the things I'm going to do, so give your client the full value of what you're putting together. Don't take my notes, that's my next question.
Sorry.
Okay, this is a scenario question. This was on Facebook the other day, and it really kind of threw me for a couple of loops. I got a new client under agreement. I signed a buyer broker with them. The house that they looked at with a previous agent that they didn't have a buyer broker agreement fell out of contract, and now my buyer wants to go and offer on that property. Am I going to have an issue?
Possibly.
Wait, they looked at the house with the,
Prior.
No, they didn't just look at the house, they wrote an offer on the house. The offer wasn't accepted. It was accepted with another agent, with another buyer, and that buyer fell out. Now it's back available again.
It's a crapshoot.
And the buyer that looked at it is now changed agents.
There's no buyer broker agreement, by the way, with the previous buyer or the buyer's agent.
I actually answered this morning on Facebook.
Did you?
Man, what'd you say?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, what did I say?
Tell us, Todd.
No, so it depends, right? I was like, I'm gonna pull the Dave answer, and it depends. Like, there's lots of things that can happen. It really depends on how it's handled up front. What stage has the buyer left with the old agent? Did they just disappear into the night and then never communicate with that agent again? Or did they say, hey, agent, I no longer want to work with you? Like, was there an official, I'm no longer working with you? I wrote an email, there was some communication that said, hey, I'm not working with you. They're now working with another agent who had them sign a buyer broker agreement. And in my opinion, we could defend that and probably be okay in an arbitration case because they severed their relationship with the first agent. That's what's important, is that they actually had a verbal conversation or something in writing that said, I don't want to work with you anymore, I'm working with this person, and hallelujah, the house I really wanted came back on the market. They're going to write a new offer because dates and times of the old offer are all no good anymore, right? So they're going to be writing a new offer. The agent in our company will be writing that offer. I think I could defend that in an arbitration case. The challenge becomes is when a buyer just goes, oh, I'm working with 3 or 4 agents, sort of, kinda, and I haven't really had any official thing in writing that says I'm not working with somebody where I am. Now there's a buyer broker agreement in our company. It's going to be a little more of a challenge because of procuring costs. Look, the threshold rule, does everybody know what the threshold rule is? Whoever took them over the threshold gets paid the commission. That's always kind of been the mentality. That rule doesn't stand anymore. Like, that used to be hardcore. Whoever took them across the doorstep first probably gets paid the commission no matter what happens. That's not the case anymore. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's not something that we can actually explain here on stage. But if you get in that situation, here's what I get this question quite a bit. Hey, I have my client signing a buyer broker agreement. but how do I make sure that they're no longer working with that other agent? The buyer needs to send an email and just says, I'm choosing to no longer work with you. Thank you for your services. I'm no longer happy with your services. I'm moving on. At that point, it's been severed, and life now goes on normally, if that makes sense. That was basically my answer.
But a client can decide to work with somebody else, but that doesn't mean the first person doesn't get a piece of that pie.
Well, the second part of my answer to that was, the safest thing to do is to call the agent that wrote the original offer and say, hey, look, I know that you're no longer working with so-and-so. Remember, there's been an official email that told the agent they weren't working with them. But I think that we're going to be writing an offer on a property that you may or may not have shown them, and I'd like to offer you a referral fee.
There you go.
Right? So if you offer a referral fee and there's a referral fee that's agreed to, then that squashes all the questions about, is there going to be an arbitration case? Is someone going to come after my commission? If you guys can agree to some kind of referral fee, then it's a done deal. They get paid the referral fee, you get paid the rest of the commission, and nobody can go back and say, oh, I didn't know.
You save yourself hours and hours.
Yeah, well, not only hours, but
So,
it's headaches, right? Just scared to death that someone's going to come get your money.
yep, and in arbitration cases, I'm likely the one that's going with you to the hearing anyway. The way that I've explained it, and I will tell you that they can go any which way. I've been on both sides of the coin on these, and I've won both times because of the way that I explain it, because I'm that good. But, kidding. But really. So what you have to remember is that the argument is only as good as the people on the panel understand it, right? And so because of that, I've been able to do really well in the arbitration hearings, still undefeated, by the way. And the way that I explain it is, you go and you shake a tree, right? You shake a tree, and there's a nut that falls from the tree. And this came from Sanders, actually. The nut falls from the tree, and then
Where are we going with this?
someone else picks up the nut, right? Who started that chain reaction of shaking the tree, right?
But if the nuts
And
in the store,
if
it
the-
doesn't count anymore.
Right. But if the nut was picked up and taken by someone else to someone else, right, it's easier to explain it when I do it that way. They seem to understand it. It really works.
Shaking the tree.
Okay.
I'm totally confused here.
So it's an uninterrupted chain of events.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's the other case. How long ago was it that they wrote
Right.
that? When was the last time they talked? They had a
And
lot of questions.
was the fact that the property went under contract a break in the chain, because what did they do? They stopped working with that agent because they didn't get the house they wanted. They went and looked and found another agent. They signed an agreement with that agent. That had to be a period of time. And so that time would be the broken chain of events that I would argue in that case. And I'm undefeated as well, thank you very much. And the whole point is that you're going through that process, and if the answer is, I just wrote that offer yesterday, it didn't get accepted, I signed the agreement with the agent while I wrote that offer, you're probably going to lose that case. My question was, how did they know that the property didn't get accepted, and how did they call him? He says it's because they had the old agent call them to tell them the offer fell out.
Oh.
And so now he knows about the whole thing, and that's why I love your idea. Negotiate now a referral fee versus fighting over it later. And that's work, by the way.
Yeah, and have your future in your hands by being able to negotiate up front instead of waiting for a panel of 4 idiots on there
You'll
telling
probably be
you,
on the panel.
right, making the decision for you. You know, be the master of your own destiny by cutting the
That's a
stuff
nugget.
off.
Okay,
We were just.
You know other people
we
watch
just-
this, right?
We are the idiots that sit on the.
Hey, we just did professional standards training on last Friday, all right? It was 4 hours long.
Painful.
And there was a mock case that we did, and this is the same as arbitration. There's people on the other side that get to decide the fate of the 2 people that have the complaint, right? Well, how many people are in that committee? There's got to be
It was over
like
100.
100 people, right? There's 100 agents on here that have been in the business more than, I think you have to at least be in the business for 5 years to be on the committee, right? We did a mock case, and at the end of the mock case, how do you think it got ruled?
50-50.
47% said the person wasn't guilty, 53% said they were.
Yeah, but I.
That's how the cases go. That's how these cases, you don't know what's gonna happen when you get there, so negotiating it up front so that you know what's gonna happen in the end is the safest, even though it feels like, oh my gosh, I might have to give up 25% of my commission and I feel like I get all of the commission, well, guess what? It's going to feel really bad when you get none of the commission because somebody on the other side of the table argued against you at the end of the case. So,
And the reason why it has to happen that way is arbitration requires that if I, as the broker that loses in the arbitration, I must pay that money or my entire company is shut off. And so that's why it's a serious deal when it happens and you don't want to lose. Okay, next question, and this one is one that has come back a few times, and I want to make sure everyone understands it. If a home has solar, and I know it has solar because they've advertised it with solar.
Show them something else.
And I'm writing an offer on it. What do I have to do as the buyer's agent? And in the reverse, if I'm the listing agent and I know the property has solar and someone sends me an offer, what do I have to do as the listing agent because of that transfer?
Pray it doesn't end up in court. Pray.
Okay, so if there's solar on the property, you guys have a document section within every single listing. If you're on the listing side, go ahead and put that in there. I don't know why people don't do it. You can block out the email addresses or whatever for the clients, but you can put it right in there so everybody is aware that, do that with the SRPD too, by the way. But you will be aware that there is in fact solar and here's what the terms are, right? You need to find out if the solar is owned or leased. If there is something happening with the solar that needs to be addressed. For instance, I have a listing right now. The client swore that there was in fact the solar was leased. So we went through a contract, got an offer, went through the whole shenanigans, pulled a preliminary title report because it doesn't show up anywhere else but in a full-blown report. So I'm going to recommend that you go get a full-blown report, right? But you get a full-blown report from the title company and it showed that there was in fact a lien on the property for a loan that was independently gotten by the seller. So they got a loan that had nothing to do, personally secured loan that had nothing to do with the solar company, which by the way, went out of business. Okay? So now we're in the middle of negotiations. We've actually got the seller who's selling their property. The solar is supposed to be paid off, but now the solar is a separate lien. It's a $30,000 lien on top of the purchase price. So the purchase price has to be adjusted accordingly to pay that off. So you have to, you need to know all of that. You have to make phone calls, figure it out, get the full-blown title report, ask for the documentation. Is there a transfer? Are there fees for the transfer? You need to talk to the sellers about who's actually going to pay for those transfer fees. And your monthly payments, the lease payments, try to get some of the actual utility bills so that you can pass on that information. Like, here's the utility bills for the last 3 to 6 months. That's extremely helpful for potential buyers. So that's what you do on the sell side. On the buy side, you're asking the same questions. You're asking the listing agent to get all that information to you, sometimes even before you submit an offer, believe it or not. And if the listing agent is good enough, they'll have that shit already in the MLS.
So I would also suggest that you write into your offer, if you're the buyer's agent and you're buying that property, you know it has solar, you need to add that those documents will be presented to you before the end of your due diligence, right? Because the whole point is that if you go down that road in that process and the buyer has to qualify for it, you want to know within 10 days that they qualify or not, because we've had to get to closing and the buyer can't get the loan because of the debt from the solar. That is a deal that's going to end in a lawsuit, right? Because no one told them that until they already spent $1,200 or $1,500 of their money and they're planning on moving into this house and they've sold their other home. And so you want to do it up front. On the listing side, I would also have verbiage in the contract that says the buyer is going to go and qualify or find out what to do before one date in the contract. Maybe it's the loan contingency. Maybe it's before, because that is a contingency of their loan. Or maybe you also put in that before buyer's due diligence ends, as the listing agent, you're going to go and qualify and make sure these things are done. But if you don't put it in the contract as verbiage, then when it doesn't happen and they don't qualify, you have no leg to stand on to cancel this deal. And so make sure that you're putting in verbiage for that. Any of us can help you write it. Writing an offer. Go ahead, Janet.
And I was just going to say, I've seen more than one case in my office where the buyer qualified for the loan, they qualified to assume the solar lease, the loan's ready to go, the close of escrow date is here, but guess what? The solar company has not approved the assumption at this point. And the shortest one we've had was 3 weeks after the supposed close of escrow date, did the solar company finally approve the assumption. So be aware of that too.
This is a statement more than a question. Someone asked in the chat just last week, I have a client who wants to buy a new home, and I want to find a resource that allows me info on the new home. So what do I go to? And of course, we know that there's the new home resource that's provided by the Board of Realtors, and like any good product, it's not completely user-friendly. It doesn't have all of the builders in it. And so the suggestion was in the comments, which was a really good suggestion, go directly to the home builders and create an account, which you can do as a real estate professional, and they will send you updates on product. Hopefully they'll send you updates on commission structures, but I doubt that'll happen. But the whole point is that you're getting the most constant, continuous form of info directly from the builder on what product they provide. And so if you don't have that, I have about 7 accounts with different builders. I receive a text every day almost with updates on what new home resources they have. Anything else you would suggest besides that?
Yeah, go watch the YouTube. Go watch our sales meeting from when we had all those new home people here.
Yep, good stuff as well. Okay,
Something went wrong.
why do permits matter on a conversion or addition? And what should I do as the listing agent or the buyer's agent to make sure that I'm in the right position?
We've answered this many times.
Too bad, it came up yesterday, answer it again.
Okay. So permits, and this was, I think you had a question about it almost a year ago, right? We covered it in one of these broker potpourris. It was a permit, what do you do if it's not permitted? Can you go to the county, have it permitted, or ask questions and blah, blah, blah. So if you have on a listing, as a listing agent, if you have a property that has an unpermitted addition, just make sure you disclose that in the MLS, make sure that's in the agent-to-agent remarks, make sure that everybody's aware. Ask the seller if they would consider actually permitting it, right? That could cost the money, but they're probably gonna ask, should we do it? You can ask them if they want to initiate that conversation with the county, because if you do it and they end up having to pay more money, it's now your fault that they're paying more money. So let them initiate that conversation with the county to figure out if it does make sense for them to permit it.
Why does it matter though?
Oh my
Why do I
goodness.
have to have a permit?
Well, because the square footage, you don't, well, one, because you want to make sure that the whatever addition it was has been done correctly,
Okay.
that it was correct.
So it doesn't
built-
fall down on top of me when I buy the house?
Correct.
Okay.
So it's built to code so that there isn't, like if there was an addition of a fireplace, for instance, that it's not going to explode on you every time you turn it on, or, you know, the chances of it exploding, that's happened before too. So you want to make sure that it's built to code. You also, square footage sometimes makes a difference for when you put it into the tax records. It shows up as a proper square footage. I'm sure many of you have seen, like in the MLS under agent-to-agent remarks, that there's extra square footage that is not permitted, that's been added to the home. That's really a quick trigger for you to know, hey, I gotta go check on this and find out. But ask the listing agent to ask the seller. Don't do the research yourself as the buyer's agent, because you could also end up triggering additional costs for the seller, and they're not gonna like you if you do that.
And I can't get a loan. If it's not permitted and the appraiser comes out, there's a possibility they're not going to bring in the appraisal without me getting.
Yeah, the appraiser can't use that square footage as part of their assessment. Here's my pet peeve about this. I think this is what Juan was trying to say is as a buyer's agent, we're eager to find out the information for our clients, right? So we go to the building department at Clark County and say, hey, 123 Main Street has this additional bedroom, and I want to see if they pulled permits on it. And the guy behind the counter goes, oh, well, I don't see anything in the computer, but what was that address again? Let me just double check that, as he's handing it over to the code enforcement guy that says, go to 123 Main Street because they have an additional bedroom that they didn't get permitted, and we need to get paid on that. We need to get our permit money, we need to make sure. So now as a buyer's agent, that you have nothing to do with this transaction yet, as a buyer's agent, you've now forcing the seller to get a knock on the door that says, hey, we understand you have an unpermitted addition on your home. And they're gonna be like, how'd you find that out? Oh, well, so-and-so agent came down and told us because they're trying to buy your house. Look, just be really careful when you're investigating these kind of things. And then the real truth is, you as a buyer's agent, that's not your responsibility. That's not something that you should be doing. That's a liability that you're taking on yourself that I would almost bet, I don't know this, maybe I can ask Brandon, I bet your E&O insurance isn't going to cover you in that case. I'm not sure.
You're trying to be a contractor.
But I would tell you that you should not be doing that investigation. That's on your buyer. You are to disclose it, you're to tell them what you know about it, but man, that drive down to the county could cost you a bunch of money.
And your license.
So I want to go back to the Realtor core. I'll grab Lois just a second. Be the source of information, right? And so the standard of practice should be that when my client says, what's the liability of permitting and what's the difference if it's permitted, I should be the source of the place they go to find it out. And the whole point of this is, can I prove later that I told them that? No, not unless I document it. And so I should be putting in writing to my client, here is the number for code enforcement and the permitting department at 3 different municipalities that could have interaction with this property. The county, the city, and the other place that I can't find whoever it is. Call one of them and do your due diligence and find out if this is going to work for you. And if I don't put that in writing, I can't prove later, so my E&O will cover me, that I didn't tell them anything. They went to this department and found it out. That's the whole point, is putting that in writing.
Well, yeah, and I think I think what happens is agents talk to their clients. Like, we have a face-to-face conversation about it, and the client goes, yeah, I don't care. I'm okay with it. It looks nice. I'm okay. It doesn't matter, right? So then we don't put anything in writing. And guess what? It's not a problem until they move into the house, and suddenly the electrical system, every time they plug their hairdryer in, shuts off. And it's not a problem until it's a problem. And if you don't have something in writing that told them, that proves that you told, look, it's going to come back on you every single time. So I know when it doesn't seem like a problem, it's hard to put it in writing, but to always follow up those conversations with an email that just says, hey, we just talked about this, and I'm glad that you don't care about it at this point. I'm happy to help you move forward. 2 questions out there somewhere. Lois had one.
And then Roya.
Where does Kitech fit into calling the building department people to see if
There's a separate
Kitech fixed it?
That's a whole different question. That wasn't planned for today.
No.
We'll get back to you on that one.
No,
No,
it's a great question,
Circle
because
back.
Kitech usually will come up in association docs because it's community-wide. And so a lot of times what will happen is, like Sun City. Sun City's famous for Kitech. And so in their association docs, they have an attorney that you can call and get all the information on Kitech.
They don't have anything.
And for 50, yeah, they don't have anything. For 50 bucks, you can actually get the case info, and it's public record, but people still pay the 50 bucks. And you can get all of that documentation and provide it to the client. But the other point is, if I provide you a letter from an attorney and you're just the consumer, do you really understand what it means? And the answer is no. And so usually I like to follow it up by getting a professional, a contractor, or somebody that has replaced Kitech to call the buyer and explain why it even matters. And we've had the same thing where it actually closed, it was fine, it wasn't noted, and then the Kitech burst in the wall after closing, and you don't want that on
As a
you.
listing agent, can we call the building people to say, has there been a permit on this house for anything?
The seller would know that, right?
In theory.
Well, in theory, the seller's only responsible for what the seller knows, so don't go doing research that you weren't asked to do either. If you go to the seller and say, hey, do you know of any Kitech in your home? And they say, no, I've never heard of any, I don't know of any, don't discover problems that you aren't responsible for. Because if you start being MacGyver, you're going to end up having yourself in a lawsuit to figure out too.
Yeah, and the other challenge there is that as a listing agent, you then start providing information to try to convince the buyer it's okay to buy the house. And again, you're outside your bounds. Look, your job is not to convince the buyer of anything. There's this thing, y'all have heard of due diligence? Like, it's in the contract. They have a certain amount of time to do their due diligence. It doesn't say anywhere there that the listing agent will help you during your due diligence period to satisfy your needs and wants of whether you should buy or not buy this home. Like, if they have a question, you can answer the question if the seller can answer the question, but if the seller can't answer the question, you have to advise them to go look beyond that. And I got to tell you, I don't think it's your job to go do that, right? I feel like it's our job to represent our sellers, and that we shouldn't be doing investigating for our buyers who are trying to buy the property. If that makes sense.
There is one carve out to that, and it's litigation that came up 3 years ago. There's a thing called reasonable skill and care. You are responsible to know what everyone else around you has known. And so if Thomas is a listing agent in Sun City and he's sold 13 homes in there, and every single one of those homes has had Kitech, right? Because he knows that, reasonable skill and care would dictate that he knows this property could be subject to Kitech. And so it would be his responsibility to ask the consumer, do you have any knowledge of it? And their answer would be, no, I don't know anything about it. Okay, great. But he's used reasonable skill and care to make sure that they at least were asked the question because everyone else knew about it. It goes a step further. I had a property that I was the broker for, my agent sold. She goes to do the walkthrough. The neighbor comes out and says, I'm so glad somebody bought this house after the murder-suicide. And so the buyers are standing there now like, scared to death of what happened. And so she came back to the office and said, what do I do? And I said, do the buyers want to buy the house? She says, yeah. And I said, you don't have to do anything. The house didn't kill them, right? So it's not a disclosure item with the house. But did everyone in the community know it happened? Like everyone, all of us. And she's like, well, I don't know. I didn't know it happened. And they didn't know it happened. And so am I in trouble for reasonable disclosure? No. But if she would have Googled the address of the house, guess what popped up? The news story for that situation. Now, that's outside of that scope, but if everyone in there would have known about it, if every realtor that was selling there knew about it, she could have had liability because of that one issue. But the odds of that happening are so far off, and that's why I make the statement many times when someone asks me a question, what do you think of this? Have you tried Google? Because it's amazing the resource of information that will pop up from an address or keywords of information. I've told clients, when they've asked questions about certain things, let's Google it and see what pops up. Because am I the source of the info then? No, I'm the source of the place to go get it, and that's what you always want to be.
Also, I just want to say, I don't know if it still exists, but a couple of years ago, there was a number for Sun City, Summerlin, that the homeowner could call, because they would ask for the homeowner's ID number or whatever it is they have, and you could find out, do I have Kitech plumbing? And they would say yes or no. Ellie?
Actually, on the Sun City website, there's a link with every single house. Had it replaced, not replaced, what type of plumbing it was, all the information you need.
Right, because some people took their $5,000 settlement money and had a really good time, and other people replaced their Kitech pipes. And it will tell you, yeah, they got paid settlement money, but they didn't replace the pipes. Yes, these people replaced the pipes. So that's on their website. So your seller has information available to him on that.
Roy had a question.
Do you have a question, Roy?
No, I was actually just, when Todd was talking about the don't go investigating without, we're going through that right now with other properties, and when I went down to Clark County, they flat out said, did you have a nosy neighbor or did you have a realtor that called us? Because we don't really go and investigate all this area, especially the area that we're in. So just, just kind of take that advice, because otherwise we're really going to have to go through all this. We just had a really bad neighbor that made us go here.
And that's funny because title companies sell certain provisions, like on their additional riders, that you can utilize for things that weren't permitted or built over property lines because it's something somebody didn't know and it's been transferred multiple times, right? Because it happens a lot. Question came up, and I think this is...
I was just going to say about Kitech. I had a buyer buy a house, and the listing agent actually was an investment seller, and the listing agent said this house had Kitech, and I made him update the plumbing before he sold you the house. So,
Interesting.
the listing agent, he did the right thing, I guess.
Okay, lost my train of thought. Okay, so there was a question in there, and the point was, I found a piece of property and it's owned by an LLC, and I want to find out who the owner of the LLC is to see if they want to sell the property. And so the question was kind of, how do I go about doing that to be able to find these people? So number one, we all have access to the tax record, and the tax record provides the name of the entity that owns it, the address they receive their statements, meaning their tax bills to, and sadly it doesn't list any phone numbers. It used to, remember that, when it had phone numbers in there? And the other thing you'll notice is it lists the APN number. If you take the APN number and you go to the county records, you can actually get the physical deed that was signed by the individual. So when you're in a corporation, my corporation is Chris Bishop's the Best LLC. Now, funny enough, I'm not the signer for Chris Bishop's the Best. I know it, but I'm not the signer. My daughter Madison is. And so what I'll see is when I go to that deed, right? When I go to that deed, Madison Bishop signed the deed. And so now this is the person that's the managing member for Chris Bishop is the Best LLC. And so how would I find Madison Bishop? I could do two things. Number one, I'm going to Google again, Chris Bishop's the Best LLC, trending right now in Google. And I'm going to Google Madison Bishop to find out any information I can about a Madison Bishop that lives at the address listed on the property. That is the fastest, most effective way to find it, unless I go to my title company, which has access to a lot of public records, and many of them can provide multiple numbers for the address there and multiple contact forms for the address there, and all of the people listed that get mail at that address. Did you know that?
And in Remind.
And in Remind, you can do that as well.
IV data is like super easy.
Yeah,
I was gonna
Secretary of
say
State.
Secretary of State, you can get it from there, Silver Flume, whatever you
They're a little
wanna call
backed
it.
up at the moment.
Yeah, there's also an app now, it's not an app, it's like a text line, it's called IV data, where you can just put in the address and it pops back to you within an instant, like phone numbers and addresses and email addresses and all sorts of stuff affiliated with that property. It's crazy. Okay.
Was that IV like Victor or IV?
IVY, like poison ivy, IV data, DATA.
Is there a service fee for that?
There's no service fee. You can get it from your title rep. I don't know if all of them have it. I know Chicago Title does. That's where I got mine from. They just signed me up for it. All right, so last question, because we only have 3 minutes, and so we're not going to let Tom talk. Just kidding. If the buyer sends notice of cancellation to, well, I don't know what that says.
Listing agent.
Oh, can listing agent put the property back in ER? Buyer doesn't reply or perform, can I do the same? I don't know what that means. That second question is silly, but it's fine. So we've talked about this multiple times on,
Let it go.
on broker potpourri.
Have you seen Frozen? Because you need to let it go.
I'm just saying, we've done this.
I know, but
before.
there's new people all the
So,
time.
cancellation, there is a notice of cancellation addendum in transaction desk. That services 2 separate sections. The top section references specifically the cancellation itself of the transaction. The bottom section is for the earnest deposit return and who it goes to. If you have the cancellation signed by both parties, that transaction is canceled. It's just the earnest money that's in dispute. The Forms Committee about 4 years ago separated those 2 things so you could actually cancel transactions and put them back on the market without holding the seller hostage for this earnest deposit. And the earnest deposit is the only thing left. So my recommendation is if you're on the listing side, you want to put the property back on the market, even though you might have 2 separate cancellation addendums that have 2 separate things on them, meaning who gets the earnest deposit at the bottom. One of them says the buyer, one of them says the seller. Have the clients sign one cancellation addendum that cancels the transaction, and they can fight over and mediate on the earnest deposit later.
So you want to know that that's a trick question?
How is
Because
that
the
a trick?
property actually never left the market. You just changed the status to one that wouldn't be shown. And so this is something that's really interesting. We get this a lot, is that we used to have C&P. What were C&P for? Contingent and pending. Contingent meant that I had a contingency that I still haven't overcome, inspections, appraisal, getting everything signed, whatever it was. And pending meant that I was pending closing of this deal. Everything else had pretty much been done. I'm good to go. We're just waiting to get our final doc signed and we're going to close. And agents historically in hot markets like this showed contingent properties. And then a board that wasn't mine decided that we're going to put it under contingent show and contingent no show because no one understands what C&P meant. And so if you put a property in contingent no show,
They still don't know what.
It's under contract, no show, or under
It's the same
contract,
thing.
show.
and so the point is if you put it into no show, you've told everyone because of your and your seller's choice, you don't want anyone to show this home because
That
it's
it's
under
pending.
contract.
It's under contract.
It's under pending again. But if it's under contract show, technically it is still on the market. It's just not in ER because you still have things that you're working out in the contract. And my second point was, if the buyer, we've all had this where the buyer goes MIA. The buyer's agent can't get a hold of them. The property didn't appraise. We haven't worked out what's going to happen. Can my seller, since the buyer went MIA, put the property back in ER?
After the close of escrow.
And the answer is no. You can't until the escrow date passes because the buyer, even if they don't reply, it was the buyer's contingency, not the seller's. Does that make sense to everybody? The buyer had the job of making sure the property's condition made sense. The buyer had the job of making sure the appraisal came in, and if it didn't, to negotiate with the seller. And if they go MIA, that means that they've decided on a course of action. And so you can't remarket the property into ER because of that point, unless they blow the close of escrow date.
Couldn't I put it in under contract show though?
You absolutely could. But now, in the agreement, the seller has dictated in writing who's going to do
But I can
what.
only do that by doing a change order.
Yes.
You can't just randomly wake up on Sunday morning and go, I'm going to put it under contract show. I just thought of that. No, you got to get your sellers to sign something that says to to move it from under contract no-show to under contract show.
And that's because it was added to the listing agreement. 3 choices: under contract show, under contract no show, and decide once we get an offer. I thought it was funny that they added that. That was cool.
Who's on first?
Who's on first? And so if you put under contract no show because you don't want to deal with the hassle of showing the property once it goes under contract, that might be a mistake on my part, just putting it out there. Any questions we missed or follow-up? Good stuff?
Good, yes.
Good information? Okay, the last one's on here that we didn't address is
Go for it.
Zillow pulling out of the market currently for buying properties. And is my world gonna crumble? Is my property values gonna go
My stock
up?
and offer pad's going up.
Yeah, right? So the only thing I want to say about this that I've noticed is immediately people are jumping on the bandwagon of the market's going to change. Zillow's forecasting that they're just getting out of it. If I bought 3,800 properties and had to sell them,
And overpaid for them.
yes, and I had to rehab all of them at the same time we have a shortage in labor, would that be an easy position to be in? No. But do you think they're going to take a loss on all of these properties? What's happening every month that these homes don't sell?
Yeah, keep going.
Right now, right? But they do have holding costs, they do that thing. I actually know the guy that does all of the Zillow rehabs, and they can't get appliances. They can't get support and labor. They can't get people to return their phone calls because there's a shortage of people to work on them. And how long do you just sit there and do nothing, right? So, and they've got to stop the flood of people bringing them in. So don't react too soon until we know more about it. I just would suggest that. Anyone else think the different? Nope, we all agree?
Can I say something before we end?
Absolutely.
Okay, if any of you were planning on going to LVR, the association building this afternoon, they are closed for training for the staff all afternoon. Staff development day. Also, the bake sale going out in the lobby, going on in the lobby. And general membership, Friday, 11 o'clock at the Four Seasons. And free CE, which is law with, God, my mind just went blank.
JC.
Thank you, JC Melvin. So be sure you.
You know what else is on Friday?
What?
Todd's birthday. Happy birthday, Todd!
Yay.
What's on
And Chris's birthday's on Thursday.
Yay, happy birthday, me.
Really?
He's still under 40.
Jason has his hand up. YP and trivia, I don't want to tell you.
We have not won that.
This is the first year, I'm really upset to say this, that I've had to beg to get a team of 5. Usually we have a couple of teams, a couple of people show up, so even if you don't want to be on a team, show up at Sierra Gold Thursday, 5:30, $30 will get you dinner and 2 drink tickets, and it'll be a really good time. So support YPN.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Just so you have it on your calendar, next week we're going to start the business planning and sales meetings to get you ready for the first quarter of 2022. So make sure you're at the next couple of sales meetings here in person with your notepad ready to go. I got the first one, Todd's got the second one, and we'll figure out the third one when we get there. So thank you so much for being here. Have a great week.
Don't forget the bake sale.
Don't forget the bake